Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I am an employment attorney, and we are answering publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. We're in the big push right now. It is December the 21st of 2022, and I am trying to stock up enough videos to get me through New Year's. That's right. If I do that, I won't be loading YouTube again until the new year, 2023. I'm just kidding. I would still log in and try to respond to comments and things like that. I wouldn't leave you high and dry. Okay, we have a question here from YouTube user RD that was posted. Let's see. Let's refresh the page. Posted 1 day ago, and RD asks us question. 3 months after reporting sexual assault at work, the other party was terminated, but I find myself bullied on the job in subtle, albeit obvious ways. They don't want me there, yet I suspect they are afraid of a lawsuit. Do I resign, citing a hostile work environment, or do I wait it out until I'm terminated? Yes, I see terminations on the horizon. They're building a case, though, through very new performance issues which did not exist prior to my reporting the incident. Okay, so this happens more often than you would think. And what you're noticing and what you're kind of citing here, as I headbutt the camera, is I don't even know how to explain it. Let's start with isolation. You didn't mention isolation, but it's one of the most common forms of retaliation that we see because, as you noted, they're afraid of a lawsuit, right? They have some level of knowledge that if they retaliate against you, if they visit negative workplace consequences upon you, that gives you a new claim. That gives you a retaliation claim. That could be the cause of a lawsuit. And they know that, so they're not doing anything overt, anything too obvious. But everyone in their own little way could isolate you, could just not interact with you, could just be a little less friendly or a little quiet or a little distant or a little standoffish with you, right? And it's hard to quantify those things, right? It's hard. If you're writing the law, how do you write the law to say, hey, if everyone's a little distant after you complain about a sexual assault, such as you have here, if everyone becomes a little distant, that's a retaliation claim. That would be difficult. It would be difficult. Now, in some case law, you have things that kind of get close to that, right? In New York City, there was a retaliation claim, I think in 2019. I think I've actually mentioned it on the channel before, where a woman had a sexual harassment case, I believe it was, and was victorious. Went back to work, was working happily, and everyone was doing everything right. She got all the promotions, she got fair performance evaluations, everything was on the up and up. But every time she came near one of the managers who was involved somehow, I think tangentially, in the case, unbeknownst to him, he would make a face. He would grimace at her. And both sides, unbelievably, agreed. Her attorneys and his attorneys agreed that it was involuntary. He did not know he was doing it, but he was doing it. So he would make these faces at her, and eventually, it bothered her enough that she brought a retaliation claim. And ultimately, the finding was that even though he didn't mean necessarily to grimace at her, that action could have dissuaded her from bringing complaints of sexual harassment in the future. So therefore, it was retaliatory, and it did rise to the level of retaliation under the New York City human rights law. Now, some of you are going to be saying, that's insane. He didn't even mean to do that. What they're doing there is they're trying to decide what's more important. There's some level of, we don't want to destroy this guy because he didn't mean to do that, and he's doing everything else right, right? He's not like a villain in the classic sense. He's doing everything right. Not a great guy, right? He was part of a case. He was mad about the case, right? And you would think, well, probably not a good look to be mad about a sexual harassment case. So I'm not saying this is not Superman, right? We're not dealing with Batman here. But we're also not dealing with the Joker. He doesn't just want to watch the world burn. He was following the law and doing everything right, except that he was involuntarily making a mean face. And under the New York City Human Rights Law, that was found to be retaliation. Now, will that finding be duplicated? I can't say. I don't know. That's going to be up to judges and juries in the future. I don't know how often a case like that's really going to come up. It's quite an odd set of facts, right? It's quite odd that everyone agreed, both sides agreed, that he didn't mean to do that, right? Like, I would have probably been like, hey, no, we're alleging that he's doing this on purpose. And that would be advantageous. That would be better for the plaintiff's side to argue. Clearly, if that's not true, you can't argue that. I'm not saying I would argue that otherwise, but I would assume it was on purpose. I wouldn't just assume he didn't mean to do it. Or I wouldn't be so quick to believe him, perhaps, that he didn't mean to do it, right? But I share this story with you because it gives you some notion of how far retaliation claims can extend. Because what you're discussing here is intangible retaliation, right? There's not a term for it. I'm minting a term right now, right? Because people don't talk about it because attorneys don't think they can make money on it, so they don't define it or talk about it or care about it. They say things like, yeah, that's tough, but probably not a case. Here with this channel, I can take a minute to address it. I can say, yeah, that's a real thing. You're experiencing a real form of retaliation that I view to be intangible retaliation. It lives in the intangibles, right? Tell me what they did to you. Well, they were weird. What does that mean? You would have to they don't make eye contact anymore, and they don't face me when they speak to me. They're abrupt. Their tone is clipped. There's so many things, right? And you could work on defining it, but that's one hell of a narrative to work with for retaliation claim, which is not to say that it's not a retaliation claim. I think it very well could be. Isolation, just people not talking to you, is one of the most clear-cut forms of retaliation that is difficult to address. But it's also one that is the most burdensome, the most harming to the human psyche. Humans do not handle being othered well, right? If you used to chat with everybody, you got 30 people at work, and you would go in every day, and it was, good, bad, a little of this, a little of that, a little bit of joking, a little bit of socialization. How's your mom? How's your pops? How's your dumbass kid, right? Like, these are the conversations people have at work, right? Like, how dumb is your kid? My kid's even dumber. Right? Like, my teenager's studying magic tantric massage, or I don't even know, like something crazy, right? Like, that's how dumb my kid is, right? These are the conversations. I'm not saying if you're into massage that's dumb. These are the conversations people have in the workplace, right? These are the opinions some people hold. And it's a weird thing to get a degree in, potentially. Could be great. Maybe make lots of money. I don't know. I feel like I offended someone there. Anyways, these are not my opinions. These are things like people jaw about at work, right? So all of that was happening, and then you had a very legitimate case where you were wronged and you addressed it in the courts, and now none of those things happen ever again. No smiles, no coffee breaks, no water cooler talk, no joking about your kids, no buying your kids Girl Scout cookies or your, sponsoring sports teams. None of that happens anymore. It's just you're a human being-ish to your coworkers now. You exist. You can do tasks, but they don't want you around and they don't want to talk to you. That messes up most human beings. Messes them up. That is a lot of harm. Right now you're being like, oh, Vince is being dramatic. No. Ride that one out. You be that person who gets othered, who gets isolated in that way. Not a psychopath. I'm not trying to be light or glib with a disability such as psychopath. My understanding of that condition is that they have different experiences vis-a-vis social interaction, which is why I'm saying that. If you have a standard suite of human emotions and you handle human connection in the same way as most human beings do, that will mess you up. So, what I would probably urge you to do is, one, if you have a termination coming up, as you believe you do, that is absolutely going to be a potential retaliation claim. You should be working with an attorney now to prepare for that. You may even want to look at potentially, if you're trying to save your job, you could look at bringing a case now. Certainly, if you are terminated, I would urge you to speak to a local attorney, bring your retaliation claim. But also talk with local counsel about your options for a retaliation case now, because it's going to depend a little bit on where you are, right? What does and does not qualify as a negative workplace consequence, which is what you need to show generally for retaliation, right? You would need to show something bad happened to you because you had your case. And for our purposes here, that means something bad happened to you after you brought your case, in my opinion, right? There's a certain presumption that if something bad happened to you after you brought your case in the workplace, it's probably retaliation, to my mind, and in the eyes of many courts and case law, and even the statute to some extent. So you have options here. This is a very long-winded video with lots of stories and like digressions, but I think some of the discussion was important because I was going to say things like, hey, being isolated is a form of retaliation. And then I was going to get 30 comments about like, oh, Vince, you think everything's a claim. You're a piece of shit. You just trying to sue everybody. It's like, all those things aren't true. I am a piece of shit and I would like to sue everyone who does anything wrong. You go ahead and say that about me all you like. That being said, I do legitimately view this as retaliation, and I want to explain why and how, and kind of just acknowledge that what you're feeling is real. Like, that's harmful to human beings. What you are experiencing harms you, and I'm sorry, but you have options. Speak to local counsel. If this was helpful, like and subscribe. It does help me to help more people just like you. Take care.